Excellent. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. I am Senator Chip Curry, your Senate Chair. And today we are convened for the purpose of conducting our work session, which is for considering legislation that is before this committee. It will be people that will be speaking today are members of the committee, invited guests, analysts, for the purpose of considering legislation and ultimately making reports. As always, we are doing, as we are used to, we are doing this via electronic means, via Zoom. So if you are in the attendee list right now, what we see as the attendee list, you cannot be seen or heard. You will be able to text to chat with the clerk if you have a technical question. But once you are brought into the panelist group, you can be seen and heard well on screen, and this is being recorded on YouTube on the committee, and which can be found on the committee's website. Current live streaming as well as recorded videos. See that we're checking on Zoom identifiers. We're all properly labeled with our titles. And I'll ask members to introduce themselves. Representative Geiger, would you kick us off?
Yes, good morning. My name is Representative Valley Geiger. I represent District 93, Rockland and Owl's Head.
Good morning. My name is John Andrews. I represent District 73 in Western Maine, which is the towns of Buckfield, Hebron, and Paris.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Pebworth. I represent the Blue Hill Peninsula. Includes Blue Hill, Brooksville, Brooklyn, Castine, Sedgwick, and Surrey.
Good morning. I'm Amanda Collmore. I represent House District 106, Pittsfield, Clinton, and Detroit.
Hello, I'm Senator Scott Seaway, and I represent Waterville District in Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, Benton, Albion, Clinton, Unity Township, District 16.
Good morning. This is Jack Ducharme representing House District 111, which is Solon, Norridgewock, and Madison.
Good morning, Maine. I'm Representative Sue Austin. I have portions of Gray, which 3 miles from our home is the National Weather Service, and they're not taking any of my input to turn the heat up, but we continue. I have portions of Raymond, and I have portions of Casco, and I have all of Fry Island.
Representative Tavis Hassenfuss here in Reedfield, dealing with some frozen pipes this morning, and Winthrop and part of Monmouth.
Good morning, everyone. Reagan La Rochelle, House District 86, which is part of Augusta.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sue Bernard. I represent District 149, and that's Caribou, Westmoreland, and New Sweden, but today joining you from Augusta.
Good morning. I'm Representative Tiffany Roberts, representing House District 6, which is the majority of North Berwick and South Berwick, and I am your House Chair.
And good morning once again. I'm Senator Chip Curry, and I represent Senate District 11, which includes the 26 rural, coastal, and island communities of Waldo County. We'd like to introduce our committee clerk, Eva Reed, and Eva will be managing a number of things today, including the moving of people from the observer audience perspective, which we see as attendees, into the panelists as they are invited into the committee, and also if you're having any technical issues with Zoom and links and things of that nature. And Eva, can you highlight the phone number if anyone needs to reach you, and or email?
You can reach me at eva.reed@legislature.maine.gov, or you can get me on my phone at 287-4880.
Thank you so much. And also with us today is Rachel Olson, and she is our OPLA analyst, and she'll be helping us through review of the bills. With that, we'll open up the work session. Let me just check. Going without a script today, Representative Roberts, have I forgotten anything important?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And with that, we'll open up the work session for LD 919. And I will, typically we start with the analyst, but in this case, I'm going to start with the bill sponsor. This is enact to advance Maine's economic growth by investing in innovation, next generation technology and research. And the chair recognizes Representative Collmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am asking the committee to vote this bill ought not to pass, as it's just not ready, and getting all of the stakeholders together, especially through Zoom meetings, has been very difficult. So I'm going to try again and hopefully be able to present it to you all next session if I'm lucky enough to be elected again.
Representative Collmore, thank you for your work on this important topic. Is the committee ready for a vote? Chair recognizes Representative Hassenfuss. Or a motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to move that we vote LD 919 ought not to pass. And
okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Senator Searway, second. And any further discussion? Having been in this unenviable task or position earlier in last session, I feel it. All those in favor of a vote, let's call the roll. I guess I don't make that. So seeing no other discussion, Ms. Reed, will you call the roll?
Representative Geiger?
Yes, ought not to pass.
Representative Andrews?
Yes.
Representative Collmore? Yes. Representative Ducharme?
Yes.
Representative Pebworth?
Yes.
Representative Austin?
Yes.
Representative Bernard? Representative Hassenfuss?
yes,
Representative Larochelle?
Yes.
Senator Curry?
Yes.
Senator Searway?
Yes.
Representative Roberts?
Yes.
Sorry, my roll call list is out of order. I don't know what happened. Someone must have edited it all.
Thank you. And I believe Representative Bernard lost her connection. So if she comes back during this work session, we will ask her to record a vote. Otherwise, she'll have the 2 days to record a late vote. And if Ms. Reed, if you can, I think people appropriately get used to the order. So if you could figure out that for future votes. I see Representative Bernard is logging back in. Representative Bernard, would you like to, we have a vote in front of us, ought not to pass. Would you like to record your vote?
Yes, I would. I would like to vote yes, ought not to pass. Is that, am I going in the right
Yeah,
vein
yeah,
here?
that was,
Okay, thank you.
welcome back. And with a unanimous vote ought not to pass, we will close the work session on LD 919. We'll now open up the work session on LD 1694, and act to create the Maine Redevelopment and Land Bank Authority. Ms. Reed, I'll ask that you, I'm looking in the attendee list. Do we have, yes, Representative Sachs? She could come in. And this is our, let's see, is this our second work session on this? I believe it is our second work session. And so we have already had a report from Ms. Olson on her bill analysis. Ms. Olson, has that changed at all? Or are you waiting on an amendment? What's our position? To either start with you or to start with Representative Sachs?
Sure. Yeah, we've had 2 work sessions this session. The committee did ask or request for me to bring back additional information and to conduct further analysis on the amendment put forward by the sponsor. I have done that. I emailed that information out this morning. And as the committee, at your request, I will go through any or all of that information.
Please go ahead.
I did email it to the committee. I can also share it on the screen. I would highly suggest to have the amendment open as well so that you can look back at the original language. I will also note the sponsor sent out an email containing answers to questions to the committee. You'll have to forgive me if it was yesterday or the day before, I don't remember, but it was recently as well.
Go ahead and share your screen.
Sorry, just getting everything organized and hopefully big enough that everyone can comfortably see it. And arranging my own screen as well. I've organized these and gave them essentially head notes to guide us through the process of walking through the bill and addressing the answers to questions put forth by the committee, as well as just general analysis to support the committee's consideration of the bill. I wanted to note first that the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority, you'll note after each reference, I put the word state level in to prevent any confusion between the different land bank authorities, to just try to, and that perhaps was just for me than anyone else, but that's why it's there. It falls under Title V, Section 12004-G. This is within Chapter 379, which is boards, commissions, committees, and similar organizations. And the general, this is the 12,004-G deals with entities under the category of general government. So there are many boards, commissions, committees, and similar organizations, and there are different sections. And this is the general government section. And I'll note at the top of that, the description for such groups is as follows. And they use the word boards within the statute, but that's just a catch-all term for things that could also be called commissions or committees or other types of similar organizations. So anything that falls under this section. So the primary responsibilities vary, but they're limited to a specific purpose. Primary responsibilities include the regulation of a particular activity, the licensing of a particular activity, establishment of policy for a specific purpose or organization, and the acquisition of property for a specific purpose. In addition to the powers to hold hearings, adopt rules, and establish policies and procedures, these boards may enter into contracts, establish just charges, conduct investigations, acquire property, and enforce state laws. So I just wanted us, we often overlook the first section of a bill that's establishing such a board and understanding the powers that are granted within that section. So I wanted to just point that out, and as relates to later sections of the information I've provided as well. So you place the board there, and then later you actually establish the statutory provisions that create this entity. So those fall within Title 30A. This is the municipalities and counties title. It falls under Part 2, which is municipalities, and Subpart 8, which is development. Other programs within this subpart include things such as the urban renewal projects, community development programs, and the development districts, which include the TIFs and Pine Tree development districts that the committee has dealt with in the past. So that's more informational for the committee as a whole. Addressing some of the questions put forward. I did mention the purpose clause. I mentioned this solely to let the committee know that the inclusion of purpose clauses, in this case, it's called the findings and declaration of necessity section. This is no longer common practice, although you do see it throughout statute. There are certain situations where it may still be included, but ultimately the decision to continue with this section is at the discretion of the committee. My recommendation would only be that if the committee moves forward with the inclusion of such a section, simplifying some of the head notes and some of the language, as well as just checking that the language doesn't create any ambiguities with the statutory provisions below, could be considered. I brought up the definition of municipality. I found in my analysis a conflict between the language as written in the bill and the information that was put forward by those in support of the bill. The term municipality or municipalities is used to refer to the local governing unit that can create a municipal redevelopment authority. The Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority at the state level has the power to enter into intergovernmental agreements with municipalities or municipal redevelopment authorities. This newly created chapter offers no unique definitions, so the default definition for municipality would come from the general provisions section, which is subpart 1, chapter 101 of part 2, municipalities. And that definition is municipality means a city or town, except as provided in chapter 225. Chapter 225 of this part offers a different definition. Therefore, as the amendment is currently written, the only local governing unit that the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority can enter into an intergovernmental agreement with is a municipality, defined as a city or town. Also, the only local governing unit that can establish a municipal redevelopment authority is a municipality, defined as a city or town. As written, the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority does not have the explicit authority to enter into intergovernmental agreements with counties or regional planning organizations, as the sponsor has indicated the intent of the bill is. There are 18 points. I don't know if you want me to go through all 18 and then do discussion, or if you would like me to pause, but please let me know. I do see a comment in the chat box. I don't see any hands at this time, so please don't hesitate to interrupt me, Senator Curry.
I'll
Yep.
going and I will watch for hands if there is a specific one. I think
Okay, thank you.
I don't believe
It's
the comment relates to
Okay.
this.
It's difficult just because I have two screens, so I can't see
I'll
all the time.
manage. I can see everybody for hands. So thank you.
Okay, so I also wanted to mention a little bit about reorganization. This wouldn't really change language, but it would be beneficial to consider reorganizing of some of the sections in order to bring the establishment of the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority, the appointments and the fund together with its powers and duties, as well as the Development Ready Community Planning Committee, which is established by the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority. So it would be beneficial to bring those all together. Currently, they are separated into different parts. The next question had to do with municipal power. A number of individuals on the committee asked me to look into this further. Section 5156, creation of municipal authorities, authorizes each municipality in the state to create a municipal redevelopment authority. If the municipality does not create a municipal redevelopment authority, it may not exercise any powers under this chapter. My analysis is this appears to be limiting the power of a municipality by saying that if a municipality wants to exercise any of the powers outlined in the chapter, it must create such a municipal redevelopment authority as outlined in section 5156. And section 5156 does contain specific provisions for how and when a municipality may do this, as well as the number of local commissioners to serve on the municipal redevelopment authority, the rules for appointment for local commissioners, and some of the requirements for the makeup of those appointed. It also dictates how such a municipal redevelopment authority will be organized, the types of eligible properties, although this is done so loosely without any statutory definitions or references, and the types of properties not eligible. So while the choice to create a municipal redevelopment authority is left up to the municipality itself, if the municipality wants to create one and or wants to exercise the powers outlined in the chapter, it must do so according to the provisions in section 5156. My understanding of this would be that current municipal land banks that are already in existence within this state may not qualify according to these provisions without changes. There are some, the next two I would bring up as things the committee would need to address were it to move forward. Number 7, bonds. In section 5161, powers and duties generally, subsection 4, issuance of bonds and application for funding. This gives the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority at the state level the power to, quote, issue bonds. It does not offer any additional information as to the type of bonds that it may issue. Examples could include revenue bonds, general obligation, or moral obligation. There's no additional explanatory language either. So as it's currently written, this portion doesn't do anything. 8, eminent domain. There are a couple of things to address within this by paragraph. The power of eminent domain in this section is being granted to the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority at the state level. It allows the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority to, quote, acquire in a municipality with a municipal redevelopment authority all or any part of a property. This seems to imply that the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority can take such property through eminent domain so long as the municipality has a municipal redevelopment authority. It does not make clear that this power can only be exercised at the request of a municipal redevelopment authority or a municipality. I did speak with the AG's office. The addition of to the extent necessary to fulfill the purposes of this chapter would make subchapter would make the provision defensible if challenged on constitutional grounds, but it should be noted that the addition uses the term or refers to the subchapter and not the chapter as a whole, and therefore does not include the establishment and purpose section for the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority, nor any of the provisions regarding municipal redevelopment authorities. Finally, the power of eminent domain granted to the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority in section 5161 subsection 5 must be exercised in the same manner as described by section 5108. Section 5108 is referring to the power of eminent domain granted to an urban renewal authority, which is chapter 203. If the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority is required to exercise the power of eminent domain according to section 5108, then they are bound by the language related to a renewal project area and urban renewal project. That may not be what they are seeking to do. I'd suggest alternative language similar to that in section 4746, which is related to the eminent domain powers of the housing authority. It also cross-references section 5108, but provides different language for that reference. There was a question that I put forward on the power to submit legislation, which I looked further into. Section 5161, power and duties generally, subsection 6, legislation, uses language that grants the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority at the state level the same power to submit legislation as the governor. Using this language implies that this agency could submit bills directly to the legislature at any time. This power to submit legislation is greater than the power given to state agencies or departments. If the intent is to give the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority time to figure out what works and what additional statutory provisions may be necessary to implement their work, language creating some type of reporting requirement could achieve this result. Reports can be one-time, annual, or some other combination of time. The report could be broad or limited in scope. As the bill is currently written, there are no reporting provisions for the work or progress of the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority or of the subsequent fund. As this does not fall within or under any existing state department or agency subject to oversight or reporting provisions, the only oversight comes from the appointment of members to the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority by the governor and the confirmation of such appointments by this committee. In regards to rules or rulemaking, as stated at the beginning, this section, the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority is established under Title V, 12,004-G, which states that boards established under this provision have the power to hold hearings, adopt rules, and establish policies and procedures. So they have this power without any included addition, but it's most common that language around rules is included when creating these types of boards to make clear what types of rules they create, routine, technical, major substantive, for example. The Development Ready Community Planning Committee. There were questions around the nature of the planning committee as described by its purpose. It's established for the purpose, and this is a quote, of developing guidelines and practices in community development for communities which request them. As written, the purpose of developing guidelines and best practices appears temporary in nature. The decision on the best way to include such a group within the bill is up to the committee to decide. I'll note, though, that the committee has considered other bills, such as the Maine Healthcare Provider Loan Repayment Program, that have established an advisory committee for the purpose of determining criteria and/or best practices for the programs and to advise the administering authorities. In those cases, the creation of an advisory committee has been allocated to Title V, Chapter 379, boards, commissions, committees, and similar organizations. There is no similar provision for the Development Ready Community Planning Committee. And I note that because when these are established, there's some provision about how the members on the committees receive compensation, either no expenses, per diem, expenses only. So there are things to consider in that creation. And then I also had questions about who's appointing and to clarify on that, the addition of members to the Development Ready Community Planning Committee in paragraphs J and K should include the language that's in paragraph L that makes it clear they're appointed by the executive director of the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority. I had been asked to look into the question related to limited exemption from liability in sections 3 and 4 of the amendment. Language has been specifically added, identifying the Community Redevelopment Land Bank authorities at the state level. This newly added language has no impact on municipalities, as it is only referring to the authority created at the state level. A municipality is a political subdivision and therefore already covered under these sections. While the inclusion of this language can be seen as a way to make it very clear that the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority is a political subdivision, it also creates ambiguity. If we needed to point it out that they are one here, does it imply that in other situations they are not a political subdivision? I was asked to look into tax increment financing. And as there are no provisions prohibiting the use of TIFs or other similar municipal development funding sources, municipal redevelopment authorities would be eligible to use this as a source of funding, subject, of course, to the provisions related to TIFs and other similar programs within statute. I was not able to independently confirm the dollar amounts put forward by the sponsor regarding estimated annual revenue as a result of the increased per ton fee for disposal of construction and demolition debris and residue. A member of the committee asked me to look at the term shall hire regarding the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority's hiring of an executive director. Shall hire, there were some concerns that if there was no funding provided to this, that they would not be able to do that. This case, the bill does provide for a direct ongoing source of funding. While I can't confirm an estimated annual amount, theoretically, some money would be available for this purpose. Some committee members of the committee asked how the creation of the Community Redevelopment Land Bank Authority at the state level would address problems of bank foreclosed properties. The amendment itself is not explicit in how it would do this. Therefore, I'm not able to offer any further analysis on how it would address that issue at this time. I did ask for research within my office to be conducted or regarding federal funding sources. There is a memo included about possible federal funding for land banks, including things related to brownfields. I did review previous testimony as well, and some federal legislation was indicated as possible funding sources. When I looked into that, I came up with 5 potential other sources, although to be noted, all of these have been introduced, with the exception of the Build Back Better Act, have not moved any further within Congress. And then finally, if considering the inclusion of definitions, a chart has been attached with current statutory either definitions or references to terms used within the bill amendment. I'm happy to go in further on any of the following points.
Thank you very much, Ms. Olson. Chair recognizes Representative Andrews. Do you have a question for Ms. Olson?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Has a final fiscal note been determined for this at all?
It has not.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. At this point, I would like to invite Representative Sachs. Welcome back. You also shared a memo with us yesterday or the day before. Thank you. Would you mind walking through that in some of the questions that we had asked you from the start?
Right. And good morning, everybody. I respectfully, Mr. Chair, I would say, unfortunately, I wasn't granted the ability to work with the analyst, nor had I seen the memo until just now. Again, I'm not sure this committee may be a little different than the committees I serve on, but would have been happy to sort of talk through the stakeholder group, answer the questions again within our frame of reference and what we're working on. But while much of it seemed aligned, some of it could have been maybe worked out in conversation. So I'm happy to go through the information that I had, but I don't know if that feels right to the committee at this time, based on which way you want to go. I think much of it's aligned, but there certainly are some language pieces that feels like they're, again, just having seen them for the first time.
Sure, and I will recognize recognizing that fact that was not set up, or you all were not able to work together. That's where we are in the process right now, and so I'll honor that. And I'm not asking for agreement or rebuttal on any of the things that the analyst has shared. That would be that wouldn't make sense at this point. But you did. I want to get more information on the table, and you did a fairly thorough response to what the committee had shared earlier. Some of the things, I think, at our last work session, as I recall, were clear questions for the analysts, and other things might have been more for you at that point. Would you mind addressing any of the things from the memo that you had shared? Or would you just like to be open for questions?
Right. I'm happy to answer any questions if the committee had. Again, if the committee had talked about, well, maybe we don't want the purpose section, we'd like definitions. So we referenced some definitions that we were working off of. For example, we have the same take on TIFs that the analysts had, which were that they're a municipal tool, not a state tool. Some of the powers and duties, generally, it sounds like, again, we're in alignment around let's add some reporting language, things like that. So it sounds like generally we're on the same page. We're really happy to work with anyone. I had spoken with the AG's office myself when I recognized that nobody had yet, to try and facilitate what the committee wanted. But again, really, for me, the intent of the bill sounds like it's moving forward, and that some of these technical language pieces, hopefully we have the ability to work together to clean up.
Representative Sachs, would it be prudent at this point, given the report that we just got from the analyst, would you, if we charge the analyst and to work with you to figure out where in this bill, she brought up a number of issues that might be technical fixes that, and we might be able to better define where you all are in agreement and that this fixes, and where you might disagree, and then we have those more substantive conversations about this is why, separate from the interpretation from the analyst. Would that make sense to get to do that, have that conversation outside of committee with you working with the analyst, and then be able to come back in a more prepared fashion?
Right. I would love that. Of course, I think you all know me, happy to work with anybody, anytime. And I would love it if the members of the stakeholder group who have very specific technical knowledge, perhaps not in writing legislation, but in these other pieces, if they're allowed to, if it's agreeable to Ms. Olson, who has done a tremendous amount of work. And I can't thank her and the committee enough for going on this journey together. Truly, this is a big bill. And I meant it, I think I've talked to some of you the other day about just how thoughtful the discussion was, how thorough the discussion was. And that should be for a bill like this, which has the potential to do so much good, and we want to do so much good. So with your approval, Senator, I would love, and Representative Roberts, and the committee's okay, to work with the stakeholder group and Ms. Olson, just to define those places. I personally literally just saw this amendment or this report, but I don't see a whole lot there that we wouldn't agree with. We just need to work out some of the language. This bill has gone through the revisers, several technical analysts, but there's always pieces. And I would have loved to have worked with Ms. Olson from the beginning, because she has a lot of really great recommendations as well. So really bow to the will of the committee on that, but I would love the opportunity to do so.
And I'm not certain this committee, when I think of the questions that we sent to Ms. Olson, I'm not sure the committee recognized the limitations that she has in instructions of who to work with and not going. So I'm not sure that was a decision more as much as it was it was not addressed by the committee. And so Ms. Olson didn't feel she had the permission for that. That's my sense of it. Chair recognizes Representative Bernard.
Thank you very much, Chair Curry. First of all, I do want to thank Ms. Olson for all the work she did to come up with the answers to these questions, which were, I know, a load, and I thank you for that. Because of how complicated this is, because we don't have at this moment in time a fiscal note, and I am a co-chair of this particular, a co-sponsor of this particular piece of legislation, which evolved before I had the chance to see it. And so before I really would want to put my name on it, I also want to go through with what we talked about today. And that is, I actually would like to make a motion to table this particular bill, giving Representative Sachs the chance to look into all the questions that are left unanswered and the places where, there's probably going to be some disagreement. I think that we need the time for that. So at this point, I would like to motion that we table this bill for further review.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Representative Hassenfuss. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Do we have to do a roll call on that or not?
I don't think you do, but if the committee is requesting that I work with the sponsor, it needs to be in the motion. It needs to be very clear that you would like me to go out. And the reason for that is the bill is no longer the sponsors, the bill is the committee's, and I need to be charged by the committee and given permission to work with the sponsor. So if that is what is being requested, Representative Bernard, if you could make that very clear in your motion. I would appreciate it.
I realize I have no standing here whatsoever, but to work with the stakeholder group as well, to provide information. Thank you. Sorry. So out of line. Sorry.
Are you comfortable with that motion?
That helps me to clarify the motion. That's exactly what I would like. Tabling this bill to give Representative Sachs a chance to work with Ms. Olson, as well as the stakeholders, to round out this bill, answer the questions that are still unanswered, and give us a fiscal note and come back with that. And then I would feel comfortable leaving my name on the bill and see which way it goes.
And just to be clarified, just in terms of your language, that Ms. Olson can work with the stakeholders as well. That was part of that, correct?
I don't know why not. I think that would be fine.
All right, thank you. Representative Hassenfuss, was that, you're good with that second, continuing that second?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I am going to second the motion from Representative Bernard that Ms. Olson will communicate with Representative Sachs and all of the stakeholders who have any interest in this land bank bill and any other
I just need a
persons-
second. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
and any
I'm
other
sorry.
person
I
she
need a second.
deems appropriate.
And with that, I think we can do a hand vote, as long as we're clear on that. Is Ms. Olson, is that your take on it? The hand vote would work for a.
I do, but I think I see Representative Austin's hand up.
I recognize that, but we don't have
Okay.
discussions not permitted during a tabling motion. So we're just clarifying the motion, and then we do need to vote.
Yes, I have been given proper authority.
Okay. And all those in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Representative Austin, with that, we will close the work session on, I've lost the number of the bill. We'll close this work session. Representative Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had I wanted a clarification on, I understand that Representative Bernard has worded in her tabling that that our analysts will work with the sponsor. I'm a little anxious about adding all interested parties. I don't know the exact term, but that seems a bit broad, and I'm not sure about past
Right.
practice on that type of broadness. That's why I was trying to get something in there quick, but
Oh,
I guess I would question that. I would question that, and I'm for what it's worth.
thank you. Given the strict rules on tabling, I think we were able to clarify, and that, and I feel like we did that. We get into that weird place of wordsmithing on the tabling. Apologize. I think we have to move forward at this point, having had the vote. With that, we will open up the work session on, I've lost the track of the bill. Representative Roberts, our next bill that is up.
I believe Ms. Olson had her hand up first. The next one is 1785.
Thank you. Representative Olson?
I just wanted to, for the committee, and I know many of you, this is only your second session, but just to remind you that my job is to work for the committee. So I'm not sure this necessarily relays Representative Austin's potential concern, but so I've been directed to work with the sponsor and stakeholders, but I'm working for the committee on the points brought forward in my analysis. There's no authority to go above and beyond that, and my role is to address the issues that the committee wanted to be put forward. So I'm not sure if that just is useful. And of course, Representative Austin, you are not new, so I just thought I would add that.
Thank you.
Let's see. Okay, so, and Representative Roberts, I want to make sure Senator Baldacci is with us.
Yes,
Is
he's
he-
in the attendee. Yep.
He's in the attendee list. Great, thank you. Trying to move to the proper screen and bring the right files out. We'll now open up the work session on, and please tell me the LD number. Who has
1785.
1785? Thank you very much. Too many screens. And Ms. Olson, if you can walk us through your analysis. Let's see, are you prepared to share any analysis, or would you prefer, given that there is an amendment that's been shared across the committee, should we start with the would you prefer, or is it best to start with the bill sponsor?
That is up to the committee to decide. I'll just remind the committee that when the bill was last tabled, the tabling motion was to allow me to review the amendment, which I had not seen prior to the work session. I have reviewed the amendment and I have it available.
Let's walk through it then. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I needed two documents open. And for some reason, I only have one document open. So just a moment. There we go.
I think in this introduction script, I failed to note that even though this is not new to us, there are regular technical issues, and we ask for everyone's patience.
Oh no, you had to say it for me. Uh-oh. Okay. Again, it's too many screens, too many windows. Making it big. And sharing my screen.
Thank you.
So this is the amendment that the sponsor, Senator Baldacci, put forward to the committee. It should be noted the original bill lacked specificity and details regarding what this loan repayment program might look like. So that was one of the issues put forward by the committee during the questioning period of the public hearing and during the work session. But during that work session, the amendment came to me at that time, and I hadn't had a chance to look at it. And I have, at this point, taken a look at the amendment. So as put forward to the committee, it's an act to create the Maine Public Safety and Health Workers Loan Repayment Program. It appears to be modeled on the Maine Healthcare Provider Loan Repayment Program, which the committee passed last session. So may look familiar to the committee. There are some key differences that I will note, and we can take a look at them as a whole, but I'll just, one of the key differences is around the term or the use of the term eligible student loan. The Maine Healthcare Provider Loan Repayment Program required student loans to be eligible, and to be eligible, those loans had to have been acquired as a part of the education specific training for the profession. This bill just has any student loan. So theoretically, the student loan could have come from other preparation, not related to the profession. This bill also has both forgiveness for student loan debt as well as mortgage debt. I do think that there may be some technical problems or issues in accomplishing that. And then the other big difference is the Maine Healthcare Provider Loan Repayment Program is for 3 years. So you have to work for 3 years, and you can receive a portion of your loan repaid over each year over those 3 years, and this has 5. As the bill is kind of put forward, I will note I have started to put this into a more formalized structure. So I'll just note this section right here would need to be moved to the eligibility provision or section of the amendment. So it just provides, again, it's very, very similar to the Maine Healthcare Provider Loan Repayment Program. It establishes an advisory committee. It is under the authority of the Finance Authority of Maine, who would administer the program. It does offer a definition of public safety worker. I think this could probably work, but we may want to consider looking at the definitions that were provided at the last work session around public safety worker, or how we might better refer to those individuals or make statutory references to certain types of individuals. Establishes a fund and identifies an underserved area within the state as well. The fund that's established is a non-lapsing interest earning revolving fund. In the same way, they can receive, invest, and expend on behalf of the fund money from gifts, grants, bequests, and donations, in addition to money appropriated or allocated by the state. It's maintained and administered by the authority, and any balance that's not expended is carried forward. And costs and expenses of maintaining, servicing, and administering the fund and administering the program may be paid out of amounts of the fund. This is getting at the point that Mr. Norbert brought up about the typical funding structure for administering these types of programs and funds. I'll take a moment at this time to mention, I believe Mr. Norbert is available with us and has seen the amendment as well, and may be able to offer some additional information or answer questions from the committee as well. In terms of program eligibility, again, this is very similar to the Maine Healthcare Provider Loan Repayment Program. So you have to submit your original original student loan balance upon graduation and your current balance, including principal and interest. You have to let them know about any current payment amounts on your student loan. And if you are involved in any federal student loan repayment plan, income-based repayment, income contingent repayment, standard plans. And for federal loans, information regarding the applicant's expected eligibility for the federal loan forgiveness program. This is the public service loan forgiveness program that we discussed together last time. Many of the professions identified in this, or that would fall under public safety worker or public health worker, are already eligible under the public service loan forgiveness program. They have to work in that profession for 10 years, and then the remaining portion of their balance would be forgiven. And if you participate through the public service loan forgiveness program at the federal level, your loan is forgiven and it is not considered taxable income. And you must be in an income-based repayment plan as well. Obviously, we know, I think everyone is well aware that that program has not been extremely effective, although recent changes are opening up the eligibility, and theoretically, more individuals will qualify for loan forgiveness. There's more information regarding that in the original bill analysis put forward for the bill. I'm happy to talk about the program. This phrase right here, similar information as to their mortgage on their primary residence if they're seeking assistance on account of their mortgage. I think there is not enough clarity around sort of what type of forgiveness on the mortgage would be granted. And I think you would need to very clearly say what the similar information is, as mortgages are different than student loans. So you'd want to kind of maybe repeat your original mortgage balance, how much you still owe on your mortgage, your principal and interest, and any other payments that you make as a part of your mortgage. And then if you participate in any type of mortgage program, first-time home buyers or VA, or any of the number of options that may be available, or some of the programs that that are not readily really available in the state, but like the Good Neighbor Next Door programs that were also mentioned in the original bill analysis. You will also need to submit an employer certification form certifying the applicant's employment status, salary and hourly wage, and an intent, a signed statement of intent acceptable to the authority that says that you will work in an identified healthcare profession in the state. And again, I think that this phrasing was lifted and not corrected. So it should probably read in a public safety and health worker profession in the state for a minimum of 5 years after acceptance into the program. Sorry, I've got two screens and I feel like I'm on the, there we go, program eligibility. Okay. To be eligible, you have to be a current resident of the state or become a resident of the state within 6 months after being selected. And you have to be employed in a public entity at the local, county, or state level, or private nonprofit organization. And such public or private nonprofit entities that have significant parts of its mission to provide for the public safety or the, should read, or the public health, It gives a definition for public safety. It does not do so for public health. So this whole section here it lacks clarity. I would want to clean it up. And again, this says health functions, not public health. So we'd want to address this section here. You have to have an outstanding student loan, but it can be any student loan. There's no eligibility provision here, or an outstanding mortgage. And you may not be a current beneficiary of a state or federal loan repayment program. Applicants who were formerly beneficiaries of a state or federal loan repayment program who intend to participate in such a program following the completion of their 5-year commitment may be eligible. And this I get a little confused on, because my understanding is that you don't have to work 5 years in order to get it. You have an intent to work 5 years, and you get a portion forgiven each year that you complete the work, complete all of the eligibility requirements. So I need some clarification on that. Then it sets up the advisory committee as well. And this is, I think, very similar. State economist, representative DHHS, and then serving at the pleasure of the chief executive of the authority, which is FAME, 4 representatives of public safety, law enforcement, firefighting, emergency medical services who represent multiple locations across the state, and 1 must be a provider of services in rural areas. Somebody who's not an employee of the state, but is an expert in the state's workforce, a college or university with a degree granting program in law enforcement, and a college or public safety and college or university degree granting program in an area of public health. An organization that represents public health, healthcare professionals in the field of oral health, behavioral health, physical health, and also an individual representing or designated by the Permanent Commission on the status of racial, indigenous, and Maine tribal populations, and an individual representing private nonprofit organizations. The advisory committee's role is very similar to the Maine, or I think it's exactly the same as the Maine Healthcare Provider Loan Repayment Program. Although it is missing its statutory reference to Title V, placing this under boards with minimal authority, such as the one in the Maine Healthcare Provider Loan Repayment Plan is done. So they would make recommendations for a point system to determine awards based on the minimum following criteria, priority and non-priority occupations. So of the list of those in the bill that could be included, prioritizing certain occupations, identifying underserved areas, and some type of determination about student income to debt ratios. I'll note it does make reference, oh, no, just kidding, sorry. Nope, already said it. It has to publish the priority occupations. It will have a biannual application cycle. I want to note though here, it says in addition to the occupations of police officers, firefighters, emergency medical personnel, dispatchers, correctional officers, and this is the first time correctional officers have been singled out. They are not included in the other parts of the bill above, and local public health officers and the support staff associated with each of these occupations shall always be considered priority occupations for the purpose of the statute. I think we heard during public hearing and the last work session that the number of people who represent those types of professions, that could be a substantially large number. If they are always to be considered priority occupations, the likelihood that anyone in another profession would be that their profession would be prioritized, especially given potential funding sources, would probably be relatively low. And then the award amounts, if you meet the criteria in accordance with priority occupations in the point system, you can receive an annual award that may not exceed $15,000 annually or exceed $45,000 in aggregate, or 50% of a recipient's outstanding student loan debt or mortgage indebtedness on their primary home at the time of application, and be awarded for 3 years. So in looking at this, again, I think is coming directly from the current language and statute on the Maine healthcare providers. loan repayment program, because it says 3 years, but the commitment in this bill amendment is a 5-year commitment. So there is an issue here that it's, as it says, 3 years instead of 5, and the total number in aggregate represents 15,000 times 3. If it was over 5 years, you would need either 15,000 times 5 or a different number times 5 to get your total amount. So there is a problem here. Inconsistency. Section 4 on income taxes. All payments, awards, or grants made pursuant to the statute shall not be considered taxable income for purposes of Maine income taxes and federal. I'll stop. I am not an expert in Maine tax system. My guess is additional language is necessary here in order to do that, and I would probably need to seek the advice of the Maine Revenue Service in order to address the section. And then it says, and federal tax withholding may take place by the authority prior to the award if the applicant elects for that option. Again, I'm not sure how they would do that. And hopefully, if the committee would like to hear from Mr. Norbert, he may be able to offer some information on that section. Annual recertification and limitations apply. It says public safety and health workers may also contain contractual provisions with said worker as to the minimum commitment they need to follow through with for the receipt of said award, and the penalty or failure to do that. Again, I'm not sure why this is included. You only get the amount after completing your year of service, and you only get the amount designated for the year. So I don't quite know what is being addressed in this sentence. And again, in order to remain eligible, you have to submit annually to the authority and employer certification. So you have to recertify every year. And then rulemaking and notification, the Finance Authority would let this committee know about the progress and implementation of the Maine Public Safety and Health Worker Loan Repayment Program. And I think that should be and fund, unless it's intended to only be just the fund and not the program itself. And the last thing that I will add is the Maine Public Health Care Provider Loan Repayment Program. It was amended on the floor last year. It originally was 5 and changed to 3. And I believe it's really being run, I think, as a pilot program. Funding is coming from federal dollars. So when in consideration of funding, this really wasn't funded with money that's a traditional source. So that's something to consider when thinking about fiscal notes. The program is only as effective as the money that is devoted to it. With that, I will stop and answer questions on the amendment. And as I noted, I know that Mr. Norbert is in the attendee list, who has seen the amendment and could answer perhaps more detailed questions around the administration of such a program. As it is very similar, it is modeled on one that is currently being started and administered by them.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Can Ms. Reed, if you could bring in Mr. Norbert, and we will proceed with questions for Ms. Olson, but we'll have him ready if we need to do a handoff. Are there any questions for Ms. Olson? Chair recognizes Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Olson, do you know, in comparison with the with the healthcare workers program, I noticed it says to submit, proof of employment. It's not specifying full-time employment, though, right? Does the other programs?
I don't believe the other program requires that in statute. Under its rulemaking, it may do that. And again, it's actually, I think, in the process of being implemented. So Mr. Norbert might be able to answer that more specifically, but no, my memory does not have it explicit in statute.
So in theory, we could have a volunteer firefighter on the books that goes for a few calls a month that would qualify.
I believe that that's, I mean, it says just to be, well, it says be employed. I'm not sure if a volunteer would meet the definition of employed.
I mean, they're on a municipality's payroll, so.
Yeah, so if they're on a payroll, then yes. I think they would meet the definition of employed.
Okay, something to chew on as we're walking through this.
Yeah.
Chair Roberts, would you like to direct your question, that same question to Mr. Norbert?
If he has a different answer.
Well, in terms of the rules of the similar program, if and the full-time capacity.
Sure, Mr. Norbert, did you hear that question, or were you in limbo? Okay.
I heard it. So I just want to update you that it can be whatever you want. Full-time, we do have a program, the Nurse Educators Program requires the person to be a full-time employee. You make a good point about the volunteer firefighter. The program, the healthcare program that was referenced by Ms. Olson actually is not up and running. Rules aren't being drafted. It wasn't funded. What is being propped up is this separate pilot program that she referenced. And that is a narrower program. And that I was just reviewing the draft rule, which is still pending about full-time employee. And I didn't see any particular call out that you have to be full-time, but I can double check that. But that pilot program is a bit different. It's narrower, as I said. So I don't know if that helps. But the short answer is you can make it what you want.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you. Sure.
Chair recognizes Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a question for anybody, but I am curious for, unintended consequences if this could potentially impact, collective bargaining for union contracts with police, fire, nurses, whomever. Has that been addressed or thought about at all?
Ms. Olson, it sounds like we might be getting into discussion, and that might be a question for the sponsor who is in the waiting room. So I was just kind of managing that. Why don't we bring in the sponsor, Senator Baldacci? Representative Andrews, do you want to ask that question of the sponsor?
Sure. How much did you happen to hear me, Senator?
I think he's in limbo right now.
Oh, okay.
I just promoted him. He's somewhere.
Good morning. So I thank you, Representative Andrews. It's a good question. I think that the one thing, just backing up for a second, is I like the model of the statute that you passed because it provided the guardrails with this committee, advisory committee, to set up the process of how these awards will be handled in a professional and non-discriminatory way. Talked to law enforcement all over the state because of this bill, and they've spoken both on the news and to different legislators that they need some help in attracting and retaining people. I don't, having served on the Bangor City Council for 12 years and being involved in labor negotiations with our firefighters and our police officers, this would be a welcomed addition that any municipality would appreciate, but I don't think it would, because typically the bargaining that's going to take place is going to be about long-term wage and benefit issues for everyone, whereas this is going to try to attract people who they need to fill shortages that may not already be there, or to keep people in positions longer. But I don't think it will directly impact collective bargaining. But
I was worried that this would be kind of like a block to build on for benefits that could go back and forth between both sides. It was my thought on it. Just Always looking for unintended consequences.
Yeah, I don't think there's gonna be enough. I think it's gonna have to be targeted and it won't apply to, it won't be something they can use as an, I don't think a municipality could use this as an add-on to their budget. So, but that's a fair question.
Chair recognizes Senator Searway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to see you this morning, Senator Baldacci.
See you as well.
I just had a question about that. I know that funding is always an issue with sheriff's offices, you know, for their law enforcement and also the jails especially. And I'm wondering how this may affect it if you're looking for this amount of money and then you're taken away from the jails in other ways. Just what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't want to take anything away from the jails. Sheriff Morton is a big supporter of this. He's filed testimony from the Sheriff's Association in support of this bill. He wanted to make sure the correctional officers were also included because they have a big shortage there. So I think that I think public safety is going to welcome this as another tool to use, because I think that they are facing critical shortages. These are jobs that are important to all of us, and we can't I have a problem shortchanging these professions when these people put their lives on the line, many of them to protect us. So I think a lot of law enforcement, and that's why the Sheriff's Association has filed a letter, as well as the professional firefighters of the state of Maine, as well as some EMS, that they support this effort to provide another tool in the toolbox. I went through the committee's analysis, and I want to thank the analysts who did a thorough job. But in the review of what was provided in terms of existing statutes, the only assistance that we give public safety people in current programming is if somebody has died in the line of duty, and we appropriately provide some help for the families. But we are in a point where people have got to be somewhat creative, somewhat out of the box, and addressing an immediate crisis. I don't know if I'd use the word crisis, but definitely a critical shortage that it needs to be addressed now. And that's what I'm hoping to get to. The other thing is that we don't have an existing program. So I think they're going to welcome some sort of program that will help them attract people as well. The other thing I did want to mention is that the federal student loan payment program requires 10 years of qualified payments, which is fine. This is to help people, attract people now, to help them with their payments now, and give them a lot of administrative rigmarole, if you will. So I'm sorry if that was probably more than what you asked for, but I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
Just a follow up, Mr. Chair.
Certainly, Senator Searway.
Now, I can remember, I was in real estate, and I can remember MSHA did have a first-time buyer for law enforcement program. And would this kind of relate to the same thing, or how does it differ? I guess, and how could we just kind of add the emergency people to what we already currently have?
That's a good question, and I admit that when I did the section about home mortgage thing, I was vague, only because I do think that needs to be vetted out maybe by this committee in terms of the specifics. I know originally I had talked about helping with the mortgage interest, but there are probably families that are having problems making the monthly payments of the existing mortgage. So the idea was to let this committee, which is going to be hopefully people in these professions, sift through the applications and try to help people where they can. So, but I leave it up to the committee if they certainly want to fine tune that issue. I did the best I could in terms of that issue. But I know there's different options, and I think it's an important issue. Thank you, Senator.
Yeah.
Chair recognizes Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This may be a question for Ms. Olson or Senator Baldacci. So in recognizing that this is like you said, Senator, a critical shortage that we have right now, I think it's really important that we're doing something that we know is going to work and that will incentivize. I know I had briefly touched on Ms. Olson in the last work session. If there are incentive programs that any other states are doing, excuse me, that are working, to say that this student loan for mortgage debt relief is what's actually going to incentivize recruitment and retainment. So if Ms. Olson, if you could touch on that. And I'm also wondering, Senator Baldacci, your thoughts on it being for degrees specific to that field, like our other loan repayments are, rather than just any degree.
Right. Let me address that question first, because the reason I wanted to leave it flexible is because these are professions that have critical shortages now. So if the person had some this program should be available to people working in public safety who are helping us right now, meeting those shortages. If they have a degree in psychology or a degree in anything else, but they meet the guidelines to be a law enforcement officer and they go through the training, then I think that if we're going to encourage people, we gotta take off some of the unnecessary restrictions if we're going to address a current shortage. What was your first question? I'm sorry.
I guess
effectiveness.
That's generally proof of concept that this is an effective recruitment and retention tool.
And I would just let you know that I have talked seriously to law enforcement. They wouldn't have endorsed this bill if they didn't think it was going to be helpful to them to attract people. The other options I guess the committee could consider is just giving out direct cash bonuses to everybody. But I'm trying to focus it. The part of the reason it's student loans is because we're trying to attract young people to these professions and to keep them there as long as possible. So those are my responses, but I'm happy to hear from the committee.
Ms. Olson, it looked like part of that question was directed towards you.
Yeah.
Care to respond?
I did not do a thorough analysis of other recruitment programs or incentive options in other states. Happy to do so if the committee would like me to dig deeper into that. So Senator Baldacci is correct. At the state level, we don't have many student loan programs, or really, except for the ones you mentioned, directed specifically towards these type of workers. Certainly some of the individuals under our healthcare provider loan repayment program, which we know is not funded, and thank you, Mr. Norbert, for correcting me on the difference between the bill and the pilot program. And potentially under some of the other health profession related loan programs, but there are certainly sectors of that public safety, EMS type of work that really don't have state provisions. So, and I mentioned that the public service loan forgiveness at the federal level, many of them should qualify, but they do, if they're not working for a federal, state, local, or tribal government, then it needs to be a not-for-profit organization. It can be a not-for-profit organization that is also not exempt under 501c3, because you can still qualify if you do emergency management or public safety or law enforcement and others. But it would still need to be considered a not-for-profit. So I think that there's a potential gap there, but I'm not as familiar with how our EMS services are structured in their corporate body. There was some information I pulled related to other programs in relation to home buying and mortgages. So not about student loans, but about home buying as well. Oh, and I'm sorry, I also forgot to mention at the state, we do have one other sort of incentive option in relation to recruitment. It's not specifically for these workers, but we do have the main opportunity tax credit. I think we actually heard about that at our last work session. I believe that that's proven an effective recruitment and incentive tool for individuals. You do have to qualify. The qualifications are broader than they were when they first started. Many people take advantage of that program, but it's a tax credit program. So a little different than what we're considering.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. I just wanted to say, Senator Baldacci, I really appreciate you bringing this forward. In my district, I am seeing all sorts of concerns around, especially working directly with EMS and the ability to bring in new folks in as EMTs and EMT advanced and paramedics. And likewise, hearing from our sheriff of the challenges of recruiting. They're currently doing well here, but are always concerned on this front. So thank you for bringing this forward. And I think of this as like all of us, I believe, are looking at like, what are the levers that can make a difference? What are the levers that can help this? And so thank you for proposing this. One of the things that I am aware of is that the folks in this field often have a different career path from into as an entry point. As an entry point, it's often a certificate that is needed, or that it's not an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, and then it's progress within that. And one of the things I've seen is when people go into that path and then they start looking for continuing their education, is that they are at that point making too much money for the really strong scholarship program. So like federal Pell Grant and things like that. So let's say a person has become a law enforcement officer, they've gone through the Criminal Justice Academy, and now they want to get promoted into a higher level position in either associate's and bachelor's degree. At that point, it's going to be all on loans if they're making a decent salary. And so one of the things that I hope that this can work, and maybe you can speak to it, Senator Baldacci, is that it could also be a support for those who are working in the field and then are looking at, well, I'm going to continue on, whether it's an EMT going on for an EMT advanced or paramedic or law enforcement officer or corrections officer going on for their criminal justice bachelor's or associate's degree. That would be eligible also in this. Is that correct?
That would be my intent, and I think that's a great way to look at improving people's skills, which was an aspect, to be honest with you, I hadn't fully considered, but you're absolutely correct that should be definitely included, because what we're doing is upgrading people's skills. That's a win-win for all of us. So that's an excellent idea.
Are there other? Representative Geiger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Baldacci, for bringing this bill forward. I too have been a city councilor for many years in the past and are well aware that we are having trouble, particularly with professional firemen. Our chief told us a few years ago that when he sat for the exam, the room was full of young men mostly, but some women intending to join fire departments, and that now it's 5 or 6 in the room. So anything we can do to increase the numbers is a great thing. My question for you is, that would very much help Rockland. I can see where this may help draw professional firemen. The other town I represent is Owl's Head, and like most small towns in Maine, it survives on purely volunteer firemen. Unlike any other profession that you have listed in the bill, firemen are one of those that are often volunteers. So I just want to be clear, this bill will not address them. They will not be eligible for loan forgiveness if they volunteer for a local small town fire department.
Thank you, Representative Geiger. And first of all, as I said to many people that have served on local boards or councils, it's a great learning experience. It's not always a thanked job, but it's a great learning experience. I know I share with you those sentiments. So I would just echo what the analysts had said, which was that a lot of times volunteer firefighters are on some sort of payroll. And I didn't put full time in to give flexibility to the board. So I think that that's still like an open area, but also it's really up to you as a committee what you want to do. I appreciate the work that you guys have done on the healthcare provider loan program, because I really do think that that's a good foundation. And I'm hopeful that this committee that gets created can help set more specific guidelines where there are shortages. So I think it's still an open issue. I guess if they were even part-time on the payroll, but they're volunteer firefighters, I think that they should qualify. But that's up to you folks as a committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Baldacci, in a lot of the student loan repayment programs we do, the impetus is because the cost of education is so high, and the cost benefit analysis for a lot of people doing a program just doesn't seem to be there. So we've done like the healthcare loan repayment programs to sort of help with that, a burden of college debt there. And I want to kind of ask you, one, if you think it's the debt that's the real barrier, or if the $5 million you suggested could be used in indirect payments, if that maybe would be a better way, because as you said, it's a crisis right now. And so we're looking at a pool of money. Is loan repayment the best way to go, or are there other programs that the state could do to alleviate that right now?
Thank you, Representative Hassenfuss. Senator Baldacci.
I just want to concur with his son's comments. I thought those were very good. Representative Hassenfuss, I understand. Like I said, I think that there's a lot of young people who carry student loan debt, whether they've gone to a community college or a technical school, who might have had other education. This might attract people who have gotten education in other areas to become law enforcement officers, to go to the academy. So I think that's why I want to try to attract people to come to these professions now. But I also do think, and I think Senator Searway is absolutely correct, that I'd like to, and I would have to leave it to you folks on the committee to kind of define it better. But I also think including the home mortgage assistance. So I did it this way, so the board would actually have 10 million, because that was the original proposal. So I'd keep it at 10 million for the board to determine in terms of awards, and that they can determine where the greatest needs are and where agencies need help. So I think that is probably the right way to go, to give people who work in the field input in terms of how we help individual agencies. So I think that this is a cost-effective actually way to help. It's a cost-effective way to help and encourages people to go to further training.
Other questions for Senator Baldacci? Chair recognizes Representative Bernard.
Thank you very much, Senator Curry. So I think that there is good reason to try to incentivize people to go into these professions, which we need tremendously. I want to bring up something that our community college is doing and ask for a comment, I guess, from Senator Baldacci. And that is that Northern Maine Community College is offering for the very first time, because there are ARPA funds to put into workforce type of programs. And so we've reached out, we've recognized that there is a big need in EMT, for example. And so we actually identified a particular place, Patton, Maine, that needs to have, that really has, they don't have enough people. I don't know that they have any people on their, maybe one or two, on their ambulance service. So what we did was, through ARPA funds that already exist, we've offered training right there in Patton. It's free for them through ARPA funds. And we were able to gather, it was either 12 or 15 people who want to, they're signing up for this. It's going to be free. And what's nice is it's already set up. In other words, that funding is already there. We were able to take advantage of it as the community college because we have such a program. And so we will take our program on the road, if you will. And I just think that was such a clever and thoughtful way of doing this, by reaching out to particular communities who have stated that they need such a program. And so I guess I'm just kind of asking for your take on that. And is that maybe, a simpler way to achieve what you're looking for? Or could that be part of the big solution and maybe save us from doing it in a different way?
Representative Bernard, thank you very much. I'm very heartened to hear about that program. I think that's a great effort. And the community college system and our technical colleges are a huge asset. But I see it as one tool in the toolbox. And the reason I use that is because it's clear that the state has we have like numerous programs. And I serve on Health and Human Services, and I've supported all of them. But we have numerous programs for different kinds of healthcare providers. This would be the first time that we've provided similar support to people working in public safety. I've talked to firefighters who have huge amounts of debt because a lot of times some of them go to college and doing a general course of study. They're going to incur debt wherever in terms of education. But I also I think if we include the home mortgage assistance part of this with the student loans, that we're really going to hit an important element. State of Maine. It's got and did you get the same? Some emergency is going on right now in Waldo County, so hopefully they're fully staffed.
911 isn't working. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay. But I think we need to do this program because it will provide opportunities and to address shortages on a statewide level and in various fields. But I agree with you, Representative Bernard, that community colleges in doing that should be replicated statewide as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for Senator Baldacci? It sounds like we're starting to get into discussion in general, and I just wanted to see if there are any more questions for our guest. I do have a question. I don't have any further questions for Senator Baldacci. I'm happy to, but I do have one for Mr. Norbert. And so, Mr. Norbert,
yes, sir.
Do you have any general advice in terms of programs like this? What else can you add? I know we've hit you with a couple of very specific questions thus far, but you've been managing similar programs. Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I want to thank Senator Baldacci for his hard work on the amendment. It addressed a lot of the concerns I had initially with respect to our administrative costs and some other areas. Thank you very much, Senator. Yeah, just looking at this, there's a lot that's great. We'll be able to do it. I did want to just circle back to some of the points Ms. Olson made. For instance, one thing that does concern us is more than one award cycle per year. Our strong preference would not be to do it twice a year. It's a lot of work. This program is going to be a lot of work, and we don't do that for our other programs. We did have that in language for I think the Alphon Leaders Program, which is a private program that we help to administer with the Alphon Foundation. They did that for a while, but that would be one preference if you care. The The other big issue is still we're unaccustomed to dealing with folks' mortgages, and it's unclear to us, although we know how to make a student loan payment to a servicer of a student loan, we're unaccustomed to making mortgage payments to a mortgagor. So that is just something that does make me nervous still. The other point Ms. Olson mentioned, I think it would be important to align the terms of service, whether it be 3 years or 5 years, with the years we make installment payments on the loan repayment. It would be odd. It would be unusual to have to make just 3 years of payments, but then the person commits to 2 more years, 5 years of service. It would be hard to rein them back in if they don't adhere to that. I appreciate that. I just want to check my notes. All in all, I think there's a lot we can work with here. I appreciate it, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Norbert, a follow-up to you. Are you familiar with any, I'll say it differently. For about 10 years, I've managed an AmeriCorps Vista program here in the state of Maine. And folks who are doing public service while they were doing that public service, they had loan forbearance on their educational loans, and the interest was paid. So they were able to go into forbearance, and then at the end of the service, whatever interest was paid on that was paid by the federal government who ran this program. Are you familiar with any non-federal programs that do something similar, where entities are able to, where essentially the philosophy of that was they targeted recent college graduates as to do a year of service, but they wanted to give them the breathing room from their loans in order to afford to do that. Are you familiar? Is that is that something that can be done at the state level, or is that only a federal level thing that can be done?
Yeah, so I'm only aware of it like you at the federal level, and FAME has employed an AmeriCorps volunteer for I think the past 10 years or so. It's a terrific program. I'll answer that as well by saying that FAME's state created loan repayment programs that the legislature has created don't, as far as taxation, it's not considered imputed income to the folks. So like Senator Baldacci has in his amendment. So I'm aware of that on the state level. But as far as the forbearance, and taxation of that, I'm not familiar at the state level. That's probably a better question for MRS. I wish I could be more helpful. We did during the pandemic, FAME did suspend, like the federal government did, payments on loans, student loans, and didn't charge interest. So that's something that we felt we needed to step up and do.
Thank you. And I'm just thinking out loud as to whether that is something that could be a part of this. If there was actually a lever there that we could control in terms of forbearance and giving people more space, especially if it was able to get at people to the 10-year and that public employee 10-year or public service loan repayment system was actually working at the federal level. It doesn't sound like we have that as a vehicle for us right now, something to work on outside of this. Any other questions for either Mr. Norbert or for Senator Baldacci? Thank you. I want to thank both of you for being here. I'm going to ask Ms. Reed to shift you back to the attendee list.
I just want to thank Mr. Norbert very much for his help. And I want to thank the committee for your time and consideration. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing this before the committee. I want to just check in with Senator Searway and Representative Bernard. Do you wish to dive into conversation right now, discussion at this point on this? Do you wish to do a corner caucus and check in what's going to be useful? How would you prefer to proceed?
I
Senator
think,
Sirway, you're muted.
sorry.
Senator Sirway?
Yes, I think it'd be a good idea if we had a caucus for maybe give us 10, 15 minutes. Probably 15 minutes so that they can have a little break as well.
All right. Representative Roberts?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we go to caucus, and I won't have Ms. Olson bring it up on the screen now, but I just want to throw out there to the committee that if we're feeling like we don't have a clear direction how we're going, I did have Ms. Olson draft up some study language that would better direct us on a route that would be proven effective, or at least would engage in the stakeholders a little more. So that's just something for us to consider.
Okay, would you like to, before we do a caucus, would you like to bring that up?
I'll look to the committee if they'd like to.
Would folks like to see that option before before going into caucus? Okay.
There's a couple language tweaks that need to be filled in, but Ms. Olson, do you have that handy?
Do.
Thank you.
Making it big.
Oh, maybe
Ish. Okay, so as Representative Roberts noted, there are some language tweaks that we're still that I was still working on, or that we were still working on. So this is just a rough template. Essentially, it would change the act to a resolve to examine recruitment and retention programs and incentives for public safety workers. Representative Roberts suggested that the Maine Department of Labor would work in consultation with the Maine Fire Protection Services Commission, the Maine Sheriff's Association, the Maine Ambulance Association, the Maine Municipal Association, and FAME to examine programs and incentives for recruitment and retention of public safety workers. A definition could be inserted here. You could also ask them to come up with a definition as a part of their work. So lots of options and choices there. Some guidance in what they would do in that examination. So they should identify programs and incentives used for the purpose of recruitment and retention of public safety workers in the state and in other states, and evaluate the effect such programs and incentives have on recruitment and retention, or the estimated impact that such programs and incentives may have if implemented. It might be good to get some feedback on how feasible that would be for them to do. And then a list of what some such programs and incentives that they might look at are, like student loan repayment, mortgage loan or interest rate relief, hiring incentive benefits, payment for job-related training requirements, additional language, of course, that has been discussed. Any criteria can be included here to direct the work. And then a report. In this case, Representative Roberts put forward the idea that the Department of Labor would submit their report to this committee, as well as the Committee on Labor and Housing, and either committee or both committees could report out a bill based on that report to the first regular session of the 131st. General sort of, and this would be, it's a non-legislative study. It's asking a department to go off and work in consultation with others to bring back their report. Good.
Thank you very much, Ms. Olson. Representative Roberts, did you want to say anything about that before?
Leave it open on the end. I was back and forth about between labor and housing or state and local being the additional committee where it reports back to. It can kind of, it could be applicable to either or all three. So, and again, this is just kind of a framework to put out in case we got to a point where there wasn't a clear path and we wanted more info. I wish I could talk more, but it's just not happening for me today.
Excellent. Thank you very much. At this point, we'll go into caucus, and let's return. Let's see. My timing is off. Why don't we take it a little bit longer? Let's return at 1:15 noon. Does that work? Okay. We'll see you back here at 1:15 noon.
Once again, we need hold music.
Thanks, Jack. I
Representative-
was hoping I did correctly.
Has it warmed up, Representative Ducharme, yet at your house?
Yeah, we're up about 65 right now, so we're good.
So Jack, you keep talking about music, and I just have to say, if that's what you want so much, I need you to start singing to us. I know you can do it.
Nothing copywritten.
It all has to be public sphere stuff, right?
Only royalty
Yeah.
free.
Right. I think I'll hold off. They should be back. Most songs are like 3 minutes and you can't get it in. So I don't want to do partial.
And welcome back, everybody. Chair recognizes Representative Collmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've been thinking a lot about this bill, and what we are hearing from the sponsor was the intent, which if I'm accurately understanding this, was to attract more people into these fields, which I think is important. I don't think any of us will deny that this is a really, really difficult thing to do. So like Representative Geiger and others on this committee, and even the sponsor of this bill, I have served on the town council for my municipality, and many of you have probably seen our town very actively in the news over the last year with all of the struggles that we were having trying to get police officers into our town. We were down to a point where we only had 2, and we have a roster of 7 to 9 open seats, depending on which numbers you look at for part-time. So we only had 2. And one of the things that we were hearing was really not that the issue was whether or not we were forgiving student loans, but the issue was more along the lines of they want better pay, they want bonuses to come and be attracted, and the training expenses for bringing in new officers to municipalities is incredible. And so when I think about, and this is the same for firefighters, firefighter training is also very expensive. It's hard to bring in. We are like many other small towns. We have a volunteer firefighter force, and they get paid very little to come to the structure fires. We do try to provide them with all of their training free of charge, but it is incredibly expensive. And so when I look at this, I'm not sure that this particular bill is going to address the problem that we have at hand, at least experiencing what we've just experienced over the last year in our town. And so with that in mind, I really like the idea of the amendment that Representative Roberts brought up with doing a study to make sure that when we give funds to something and when we assign funds to something, we're actually addressing the problem that's at hand. And this, at least in what I'm seeing, and it can be very different, I'm sure, in the big cities, but at least at what I'm seeing is that student loans may not be the actual way to get more people into these fields. And so I'd love to see the study, but including in that study group, and you said you weren't sure, Representative Roberts, who should be included, but I definitely think local and government should be part of that discussion because it affects our municipalities so very much. And maybe even MMA and those who are at the state level of EMS, firefighters, and police officers, so that we can actually hear what they're doing to attract new talent. And so that's where I'm at right now. I like the idea of the study, and I hope we can include those important stakeholders in that group.
Thank you, Representative Collmore. Chair recognizes Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Collmore, I do have MMA in there.
Apologies, my internet is in and out, and so I'm not catching everything being said.
Is there, Representative Roberts, were you looking to make a motion?
I could. I'd like to make the motion ought to pass as amended. Would this be committee amendment, Ms. Olson? For the resolve. And so I'll go through this a little bit. To for public safety workers to be determined by the study, but to include law enforcement, fire, and EMS. And I'm torn on the second committee. So I will leave it as reporting out to labor and housing as well as an idea, unless someone else wants to make a friendly amendment.
Mr. Chair.
I think I saw, let's get a motion on the floor. Let's get a second. Is there a second? Chair sees Representative Hassenfuss is the second. Now we'll have discussion. Chair recognizes Senator Searway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that we should also include administration from like the academy, police academy, the firefighters, training administrators, could be some chiefs or maybe the fire commission. We need some input on what facilities need right now. I know the academy is in deep repair, needs a lot of repairs. The training center, we shorthanded last year. We tried to get 500,000. We had big borrow steel to get 320,000. And we're talking this a $10 million expenditure, which is quite a bit of money that's not going to what we really need for those entities. And I'm just kind of concerned that we got to make sure we get those people involved as well as what the need is. So I don't know if you could include that or not.
Senator Searway, could you clarify the friendly amendment? The fire commission's on here. The Sheriff's Association is on here. Who else were you looking?
I would say the director or assistant director from the academy, from the police academy. And also, if there's EMS involved, you may want to get into what whoever there.
We have the Ambulance Association on here.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Representative Roberts, sounds like you're considering a friendly amendment to add, was that the representative from the police academy?
Yeah.
And that's something you would support?
Yes.
Okay, and Representative Hassenfuss, you support that second? Okay, so it's based on what's been written, what we saw earlier on our screens and what's been shared, and then adding a representative from the academy. Are there any other questions or debates? Representative Hassenfuss.
Just a substantive question, where we have the question mark public safety workers defined as, I think Rachel will probably need something there. Is that right, Rachel?
My understanding of the amendment was that the group could work on a definition. That part of what they're going to do is come forward with a definition for public safety workers, but that it must include law enforcement, firefighters, and EMS. Is that correct, Representative Roberts?
Yes, that's correct.
Chair recognizes Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would this involve the whole committee, or do we need to specify like a Republican and a Democrat member of the committee to be on the study board?
I'm going to take that one. I think that's for me. This does not have any legislative members of the legislature on it. It's a non-legislative study.
Okay, can we add legislative members if we want?
You can add legislative members if you add, and I would want to double check this. I think if you add more than 2, then it's a legislative study subject to the study table. And then it would need language that corresponds with the joint rules around legislative studies, so it would look different. There is a provision about non-legislative studies being able to have, I think it's 2 or fewer legislators on it, but I can check in a moment. But
Okay, so basically we would hand this off to the study committee, and whatever they come back with would eventually come back to us or state and local.
Labor and housing. Yes, it's very similar to the report back in terms of structure, like just process. This is like the report back we got from LD 1709 on the student debt through home ownership. So they did the work as directed in the resolve and then brought back the report. And then it's up to the committee to decide what they want to do with that.
Okay, that works. Thank you.
And in this case, it will go back to 2 committees and each committee can make their own choices about what to do with it. They'd do a committee bill, which we have not done yet. But so then it gets put back on the floor and then referred back to a committee. In many cases, it's back to the committee that asked for it back, but theoretically it wouldn't have to be. So it could always theoretically end in state and local, even if they're not the ones who received the original report. Just throwing out the variances of doing this.
Are there other questions? Is the committee ready for, Chair recognizes Representative Collmore.
Hi, yes, sorry, I lost internet again. I just wanted to confirm, because I'm not sure that I saw it because my internet's in and out. What was the report back date?
The report back date is January 15th of 2023. That's the first regular session of the 131st. So that's pretty early.
Thank you.
Before committees really get going. I mean, get going.
Welcome, Representative Ducharme. Maybe. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just noticing you're back, or I hadn't seen you for a while, so my apologies.
I was here.
Okay, thank you. The screen's very funny. It looks like I see no further questions or debate. So with that, I'll ask Ms. Reed to call the roll.
That was ought to pass as amended, correct?
Correct.
Representative Geiger,
Yes.
Representative Andrews,
Yes.
Representative Collmore,
Yes.
Representative Ducharme,
Yes.
Senator Searway.
Yes.
Sorry, I fixed my role this time. Representative Pebworth,
I think we have lost Representative Pepper.
Sorry, we lost her. Representative Austin,
Yes.
Representative Bernard,
Yes.
Representative Hassenfuss,
Yes.
Representative LaRochelle,
Yes.
Representative Roberts,
Yes.
and Senator Curry.
Yes,
Okay, we had Rafferty and Pebworth absent.
with 11 in favor and 2 absent. The bill is ought to pass as amended, and we'll see that on language review. With that, we will close the work session on 1785. Is that where we are again? Thank you. And I will look to Ms. Olson. That was the last scheduled work session. Do we have anything before us for language review?
Yes, we do, but it should, I make no assumptions. It may be brief. I wanted to just point to to my email from this morning, the amendment to LD 1810 on engineers is final out of Ross. It's ready to be reported out. So I shared that with you. My only note for that is they just broke up the very long sentence into 3 shorter sentences to help with clarity. So I did share that in the email, but why not also put it on the screen as well? Looking for my plus button. Just this long section, they broke it out into multiple sentences. So it just says an applicant reapplying for licensure as a professional engineer, and then repeating an applicant reapplying for certification as an engineer intern. So it doesn't change anything and just made it into 3 separate sentences. So that's ready to go.
Is anyone opposed to that language? I think we're good.
Okay, great. So I will be telling Ms. Reed shortly that she can report that out. You should have seen my email regarding the state ceiling cap on the bonds. That had no new information. The fiscal note was as presented. That has been reported out. The other, did that switch screens for everybody? Do you see a different page now? Okay. So the other thing that came back on language review on Tuesday that I brought before the committee had to do with LD 1800, an act to amend the laws governing the Small Enterprise Growth Program. As I told the committee, upon further legal and internal review, we really felt that the definition provided in 4A for qualifying venture fund as written didn't really do anything and potentially could have been interpreted to essentially nullify qualifying venture fund, that there would be no such thing because in order to exist, you had to invest in it. But to invest in it, it had to be qualifying. The bill was voted without any amendments to it. So I reached out to Joe Powers at the Maine Venture Fund and to Mr. Norbert to make sure if I modified the language, it didn't change the intent of the bill. And this language that I put forward, they feel doesn't change anything. And all this does is add the qualification that was presented during the work session, that any venture fund that's selected by the board, by the Maine Venture Fund board, would demonstrate the potential to contribute venture capital funding in a manner that would promote economic growth in the state. It still leaves the discretion up to the board in order to make that decision. And in order to participate in the funding program, there are still the other provisions that need to be met. All this does is clarify what qualities a venture capital fund would have in order to be considered qualifying. It doesn't mean that they're going to get into necessarily into the program. They'd still have to sign an agreement as outlined in the rest of the statute. My preference, I think, just because you may remember there was some confusion when we first voted on this around whether it should have been ought to pass or ought to pass as amended. Since the language has changed, my preference would be, and I think that it's accurate to say that we should revote on the language for clarity's sake, because it is now officially ought to pass as amended. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a, do we need to vote to reconsider, or can we vote this right off of from here procedurally?
Procedurally, you need a motion to reconsider,
I would
which has to
think
come
so.
from
Is there a
the,
motion to- Is there a motion to reconsider? Representative Roberts, motion to reconsider, seconded by Representative Hassenfuss. Is there a, I think we could do a raising of hands for a vote to reconsider. If you can raise your hand to reconsider, if you wish to reconsider this. Thank you. I see a majority of the committee wishes to reconsider. And with that, Chair recognizes Representative Hassenfuss.
I move that I make a motion that this ought to pass as amended. And the amendment would be the amendment that Rachel had just put up on the screen.
Is there a second? Check, second by Representative Geiger. Is there any discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, if there is a, Ms. Reed, will you call the roll?
Representative Geiger,
Yes.
Representative Andrews,
No.
Representative Collmore,
Yes.
Representative Ducharme,
Yes.
Senator Searway,
Yes.
Senator Rafferty is absent, Representative Pepworth is absent, Representative Austin,
Yes.
Representative Bernard,
Yes.
Representative Hassenfuss,
Yes.
Representative LaRochelle,
Yes.
Representative Roberts,
Yes.
Senator Curry.
Yes. With 10 in favor, one opposed, and 2 absent, this bill will be reported out, ought to pass as amended.
And Representative Andrews, may I ask your minority report?
I'll just go with a straight ONTP.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank the committee for bearing with me through the process here.
Thank you for preventing circular logic in one of our bills. So no other language review?
Nope, no other language review. We're all set. I did not hear anything back on LD 1793, so I'm moving forward with that one that I had emailed last Tuesday as well. And I'll just remind everyone, we heard from MDF and DECD on Tuesday regarding the GEA reviews. So again, if there's any follow-up that you would like me to conduct that I have not already done, please let me know.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Everyone have a good day.